Salutations everyone, and welcome back to my channel. You'll have to excuse my absence for the past week. My husband has been violently ill with a bad case of the stomach flu, and me being the doting wife that I am, I've essentially isolated myself from him, and since he's confined himself to this very room, I have metaphorically roped off this room and treated it as a quarantine zone. So now that he's all better and we've got the room cleaned and sanitized, I think things should be okay, knock on wood. Which really sucks because I had intentions to record my review of the Preacher season premiere, but since my husband got ill, that had to be put on the back burner. But I think what I will do if time permits, I will still record my review of the season premiere of Preacher, as well as the upcoming episode, which is set to premiere this Sunday. So be on the lookout for those two videos next week. In the meantime, on today's program, I want to talk about the controversy that is surrounding a new horror movie titled The Hunt. Just a little disclaimer here, I normally don't talk about politics. I think that it is a very messy subject. Yes, I do have my own political beliefs, but I don't really care to discuss them because, quite frankly, everybody loses their mind over politics, and I just don't think it's really my place to discuss it. Let's just say I have friends that are conservatives, I have friends that are liberals, I have friends that are Trump supporters, I have friends that are anti-Trump. And quite frankly, I really don't give a shit where you stand politically. Hey, if we have something in common, that's all that really matters to me. I am also someone who is unabashed in calling out what I consider to be bullshit. Regardless of where you stand on the political spectrum, if I see bullshit, I'm going to call out bullshit. I've done a video where I've gone after the politically correct, identity politics driven side over the controversy surrounding Bryan Cranston in playing a disabled person. And I have also even done a video where I've called out the Fandom Menace, a community that I primarily agree with on a lot of stuff, over the hashtag Alita challenge. So, as I stated before, I am not afraid to say if something is ridiculous, regardless if I agree with that person or not. So, if you're going to portray me or paint me as something that I am not because I hold a particular opinion, well, you obviously don't know the type of person that I am. And quite frankly, if you're going to paint me as something that I'm not, well, you're an asshole. Period. And if you expect me to disavow a certain person or a particular group because they hold an opinion that you don't like, well, get out of my sight, because I really don't want to have anything to do with you. Because quite frankly, tribalism is absolute cancer. Now that I've got that completely out of my system, let's get back to the topic at hand and discussing the controversy surrounding the movie The Hunt. The Hunt is a 2019 movie produced by Blumhouse Productions. It is a horror movie, and the movie is about two groups of people. You have one group who seem to be these rich elitist types who are hunting another group of people, and this movie is also labeled as a satire. Now, there seems to be a lot of confusion on the internet about what the term satire means, so I thought this would be a good opportunity for me to describe what the term satire actually means. Now, the definition of satire is the use of humor, irony, exaggeration, or ridicule to expose and criticize people's stupidity or vices, particularly in the context of contemporary politics and other topical issues. And it seems that people are really confused by the term satire. A lot of the times they seem to incorporate satire with comedy, which is not entirely wrong. In fact, one of my absolute favorite pieces of fiction, that being Preacher, is a satire on organized religion, and it's one of the funniest pieces of fiction I've ever read, and one of the funniest television shows I've ever had the pleasure in watching. The responses that I have been seeing to The Hunt is, wait a minute, this is supposed to be considered satire? This does not look funny at all. And as I said before, satire can be comical. However, there are examples as to satire not being in the least bit comical at all. One of the prime examples that I can think of exactly off the top of my head is Aldous Huxley's masterpiece of a novel, Brave New World. This piece of fiction is classified as satire, but let me tell you something. This particular story is not comical in the slightest, and it is definitely not lighthearted. Now, the controversy surrounding this movie is the portrayal of these characters. One particular group is an allegory for the anti-Trump side, and then the other side, the ones being hunted, is the allegory for the Trump supporters. And going back to the definition of satire, to kind of add a little more to it, satire is an over-exaggeration of a particular topic that is relatively based in truth. And yes, this movie is classified as satire because these two groups of people is an over-exaggeration of something that is based in truth, and that being the unfortunate divide in this country between those who support Trump and those who are vehemently against Trump. And there has been outrage from at least one particular group of people, and that's more of the conservative side, who are outraged that you have a movie where the Trump supporters are being hunted down. And this is going to be probably kind of a taboo type of opinion, but in all honesty, I don't get what the outrage is over this, and I will tell you why. Now, to those of you who do not like that I'm not as outraged as you are over this particular topic, well, just hear me out here. What gets me over this quite frankly ridiculous outrage is that a lot of people don't seem to understand is that, well, if anyone had been paying attention, the quote-unquote deplorables, the ones being hunted down, are being portrayed as the protagonists, and the other side, that being the elitist, leftist type people that are hunting the deplorables down, well, they're being portrayed as the villains here. So if anybody should be outraged over this movie, even though I still think it would be a ridiculous thing to get mad about, but if anybody should be outraged by this movie, it should be, well, the other side, the anti-Trump side, because I'm going to be perfectly honest here. That so-called side, the liberal side that are not on the side of Trump, that absolutely hate him, they're the ones that tend to like to see themselves as the good guys. And that's why I'm kind of surprised that they're the ones that are not outraged by this, because their side, at least from what I've seen in the trailer, are being portrayed as the villains. Now, I know there's going to be some people that are going to be like, well, that side's not really going to care. They want to see themselves as the ones hunting down and killing innocent people, after all. And another thing I've also heard is, well, usually with mad slasher movies, the villains end up offing off the people that nobody likes. Hyperbole aside, first off, if there are people out there that are on the anti-Trump side who get glee out of seeing themselves as people hunting down the quote-unquote deplorables, well, guess what? That just goes to show you that they have zero self-awareness, because if they haven't been paying attention, their side is not looking too good. It does not look like they're being portrayed in a positive light here, my dude. Secondly, while yes, there are instances in mad slasher movies where you do have obnoxious characters that you want to see offed off, overall, there's still protagonists in a mad slasher type of movie that you are rooting for. You have protagonists that you care for, that you want to see live in the end, and you want to see beat the mad slasher villainous type. This just harkens back to a couple years ago when there was outrage surrounding the movie Get Out. Another piece of satire, interestingly enough. And I remember that there were people outraged that there was racial division, that this movie was causing racial divide. It's like, oh my god, the whites are being portrayed as the bad guys here. Never mind the fact that the movie Get Out was actually an over-exaggeration of white liberals who put racial minorities on a pedestal, as opposed to just treating them as normal human beings with their own thoughts and ideas. But I digress. And because of the outrage and backlash against this movie, it was decided by the powers that be to pull the plug on its release. And quite frankly, I am not happy with the results of this. Now, this might be the only time, or maybe one of the few times, that I will actually get political on my channel, but I am a free speech advocate. I fully support free speech and especially freedom of expression. And the fact that there are people on the internet that are cheering for the removal of this movie, well, as someone who fully supports freedom of expression, I find this behavior and these opinions to be, well, rather disgusting. If you yourself have complained about deplatforming of conservatives, but have actively cheered for the removal of this movie, well, I've got news for you, pal. You are a hypocrite. If you are screeching about free speech being violated for conservatives that are being deplatformed but are actively cheering for the removal of this movie, this just proves to me that you don't give a shit about freedom of speech, you don't give a shit about freedom of expression, because, newsflash, freedom of speech and freedom of expression applies to everyone. You are not the arbiter of what is and what isn't allowed on a particular platform. You cannot uphold one standard for one particular group of people over another. That's what we call tribalism. Thank you very much. Sorry for the rant there, guys. I just had to get that off of my chest because I've just been seeing people saying that who I agree with a lot of the time, and quite frankly, I thought that they would know better, but apparently I was wrong. I have seen an argument being floated around by several YouTubers that the subject matter of the movie could be classified as Hollywood hypocrisy. Now, I want to say that if the movie was portraying the quote-unquote deplorables as the bad guys, well, then I can see a point to be made in terms of Hollywood hypocrisy. But, like I said, based off of the trailer, it doesn't appear that the quote-unquote deplorables are the antagonists or the bad guys in this situation, so I consider this argument to be, well, rather invalid. And those are just my thoughts on the controversy surrounding the movie The Hunt. I'm curious to know exactly what your thoughts are, so if you would like to share your own personal opinions or takes, certainly feel free to leave a comment down below, and thanks for watching. Until next time, dear friends, this is Cynical Lindsay, signing off.